Welcome to Flashpoints. I'm Jeff Pegues, joined as usual by CBS News senior national security analyst Juan Zarate.
Jeff, good to see you.
North Korea, Kim Jongun testing. U.S. officials skeptical whether this was an H-bomb. But what does this mean?
Well, regardless of whether or not it was a hydrogen test or an atomic test, it demonstrates that this is a regime that continues to develop its nuclear program. This is now the fourth nuclear test of what type we'll learn in coming days and weeks. But it demonstrates that they continue to try to develop that capability, along with their ability to deliver potentially a nuclear device, as well as the miniaturization, which would allow them to put it onto a missile and deliver it. It also demonstrates that this is a regime that will again use these kinds of tests, its bellicosity, to demonstrate strength and stability, both externally and internally.
Well, I was going to ask you about that because every time this happens, there are analysts who say that this is another attempt by Kim Jong-un to gain attention. Is he trying to gain some sort of attention to become relevant again in the discussion worldwide?
There's a little bit of that, and I think there's always a dimension of where the leadership in the Kim dynasty sees itself vis-a-vis the world and how it tries to place itself. And so you saw their statement after the test saying, look, we've entered the powerful states. You know, we are now a nuclear state and have to be recognized as such. And so part of this is the pride of the regime itself trying to get that attention. But what's a little bit different here, Jeff, is you usually have a cycle of bellicosity that is attached to then concessions. But we're not in a period of negotiations. The six-party talks really ended in 2009.
And there are sanctions in place already.
Right. And so it's not altogether clear what they seek to achieve in terms of placement in the sort of the world, in world opinion. It's clear, though, that he's trying to ensconce power, his power, the regime's power, that of the Kim dynasty. That ultimately is fundamentally what he's trying to achieve, both with the weapon system and also the purges that we've seen internally.
All right, so what is going on at the White House right now in regard to what is happening with North Korea? Is this an issue that now rises up the to-do list, if you will?
Absolutely, and frankly, it's the last thing this White House needed. We've seen how 2016 has rolled in and ushered in all these national security headaches. This is the last thing they needed. But what it does is it reminds not just the White House, but the world that this is a really unstable regime, one whose leadership we really don't understand, that really presents a risk not just to peace on the Korean Peninsula, not just to South Korea or even neighbors like Japan, but also potentially to the United States. And so it does put North Korea on a higher level of attention and certainly raises the question of, can something be done other than what has been the strategy, frankly, of strategic patience? Can you be patient with a regime that's trying to develop nuclear weapons to actually and potentially deliver further afield in Asia, potentially toward the United States?
Yeah, and there are some questions about the amount of intelligence that U.S. officials have on the ground there in North Korea, because there are questions about whether U.S. intelligence officials knew that this kind of test was coming. So what does that say? If there is a lack of intelligence there on the ground, how do you plan? How do you develop proposals to counter what Kim Jong-un is trying to do?
It's a great question, Jeff, because we're unfortunately constantly behind the curve in terms of understanding where this regime, as well as other nuclear programs,
you
have
think
gone
so?
in the past. Yeah, absolutely. And part of it is it's a hard target. It's a hard regime to understand.
Because he
it's a closed
is so
society.
unpredictable.
He's unpredictable. He's a new leader. It's the hermit kingdom, right? You can travel in and out. We've seen Dennis Rodman travel in and out with NBA stars. But that said, it's a reclusive regime and it's unpredictable. And even the Chinese, who are closely allied with the North Koreans, have a hard time not just managing them, but even understanding what the decision making is like. So I think it's very difficult to understand what's happening on the ground. That said, you can try to contain it, you can try to disrupt it. We have tools like further economic sanctions, demonstrations of deterrence. Remember the last time in 2013 we sent over 2 B-2 bombers from Missouri over the Korean Peninsula to drop inert bombs to demonstrate what power we do have, as well as to try to exert more pressure on China. And so for the White House, this also means in the dialogue with China, North Korea now has to be at the top of the list. It can't be number 7 or number 8 on a list of other issues.
All right, and it's something that we will continue to follow. For Juan Zarate, I am Jeff Pegues, and that is Flashpoints.